I've always believed that the higher you are, be it the career ladder, industry, society even, keeping your mouth shut can benefit you greatly. Let's get into that. Law Society Vice President Chia Boon-Teck resigns because he brought his inner thoughts out in the open about a grape case. On LinkedIn, of all places, where his peers are. I assume lawyers don't doom scroll on TikTok. They do productive doom scrolling on LinkedIn, where posting achievements can get as many eyeballs as possible. But what I did notice over the years is that LinkedIn became a place to air opinions just like any other social media platform. And just like any other opinion, there's a high chance that it's wrong and you're going to get called out for it. Thankfully, screenshots of his post have been making the rounds since he's gotten rid of his LinkedIn account altogether. He's made a new one, which, okay, it's like renewing your ID. You're still the same person in the news. Well, if you need a rebrand, hit me up, buddy. Anyway, let's go through it together because you need to understand his tone talking about this case. He was kind enough to make this in point form so we can enjoy each opinion equally. So in his opening, he prefaces by saying that this is a guide for people who indulge in one-night stands to protect themselves. Number 1, what's Tinder well known for? It ain't no LinkedIn. Well, it's not for grape, that's for sure. Let's not demonize the platform itself, it's the people you should be looking out for. Also, fun fact, Wani and I met on Tinder, and we've been together for almost 7 years now. It just goes to show that some connections really do work out on there. Anyway, number 2, 2 counts of grape, 1 count of SA by poking through, and 1 count of outrage of modesty. Wow, was she awake through the marathon? So just a little background history on Mr. Chia here. He was a commando in the army, then he became a CID investigator, then SIA cabin crew, then settled down as a lawyer. Understanding that backstory helps you realize that Mr. Chia's a man's man with man thoughts. And with man thoughts, it also entails the likelihood of failing to see things through a woman's perspective. Also, after being in a military unit as prestigious as commando, the alpha male perspective is hard to shake off, I reckon. So asking if she was awake throughout the whole thing feels like it's a privilege or a curse that you're not able to emphasize on her traumatic experience. Moving on. Number 3, the SA took place in 2021 in his bedroom after he took the woman back to the flat he shared with flatmates. She went back to his flat and went into his bedroom. Hello? Hi. Could the flatmates testify what sounds they heard emanating from the room and what they observed about her when she left? Okay, maybe he doesn't know what it's like to share a living space with non-family, so let me explain. If you want privacy, your bedroom's gonna be it. When the pandemic happened, Wani and I were in between places, so we rented a condo unit with 2 other guys. And we just spent most of our times in our bedrooms. Even though there was a TV in the living room, we all had our own TVs in our bedrooms. So there was little to no reason to be outside except for having meals or working remotely on the dining table. So yes, hello. Bringing a date to your bedroom if you're sharing a place isn't unusual. Number 4, 30 years old, actress and model, so not exactly a babe in the woods. Again, this is the alpha male talking. Should all women by 30 know Krav Maga? Something to point out as well, grape can happen to anyone at any age. And circumstances can determine whether we can prevent that from happening. It would be ideal if we could all be commando trained, but that's not the reality. Number 5, she had hoped to get some advice on script writing from him at that late hour on the bed of a Russian man she just met in Tinder. I mean, the guy's from Wa Banana, and I'm sure she knew that since they were talking about script writing. I don't want to comment on what people do in the evenings, but since they met on a dating app, then they're not exactly obligated to follow office hours, are they? Number 6, he suddenly leaned in and kissed her on the lips, but she told him no and gathered her things to leave, but he SA'd her and graped her on his bed. How did no progress to what his charges are? That's something you're gonna have to ask Mr. Wa Banana, who cannot take no for an answer, who could not show restraint even when his advances are shot down. Number 7, after they did the deed, he asked for her address and booked a car on the Gojek app for her to get home. That sounds rather like a date. No, it sounds like Mr. Wa Banana is trying to normalize what he did just so it doesn't escalate further. Because it's the least he can do, right? Because he's such a nice guy. Number 8, she explained that she gave him her address because she just wanted to go home and would have given him anything he wanted. Out of fear or affection? Did you really need to ask that? If fear, fear of what? Oh, I don't know, maybe getting graped a second time? This is very similar to the scenario of someone wanting to steal your wallet. And you've heard people say, don't give it to them, you must fight. Again, not everyone is commando trained. Number 9, she did not feel encouraged to make a police report after reading articles about low conviction rates for SA. Seriously, what articles? Were the articles even talking about Singapore? Regardless of whether it is, he must be aware of the victim-blaming mentality that happens in cases like this, right? I mean, he's doing it right now. Let's not gaslight victims and fail to understand where their head's at after it has happened to them. It's their lived experience, not ours. Lastly, number 10, there were significant inconsistencies between what Pamphilov said to the police officers, what he said in his video recorded interviews, and what he said in court. And that's what did him in? Yes, sir. I believe so. If covering up was the goal, you could at least be consistent with the lies. But I guess his conscience didn't allow him to, and that's that. Bonus point, case theory. Always have a case theory. Why would she want to frame him if it's not true? Okay, if you don't know what case theory means, it's law talk for theory of a case. It's a detailed, coherent, accurate story of what occurred involving both a legal theory and a factual theory. A logical description of events that the attorney wants the judge or jury to adopt as their own perception of the underlying situation. It's basically trying to put the he said, she said, and the course of events together to find the truth. And his closing. My advice to both men and women in the dating scene. Think through the above issues the next time you go on a date, and think through them again before you make a police report. These are issues you would have to explain in court. That seems like a logical enough thought, but too bad that whatever he typed before that really put him in a bad light. And such is the privilege of being a man high up in the rungs of the Singapore legal profession. But his inevitable fall from grace quickly happened as fellow lawyers, women's advocacy groups, and even government leaders condemned his post. One said that this is appalling from an individual who holds the office of a leader of the bar. Aware has spoken out by saying that when a senior lawyer mocks a rape survivor, it isn't just offensive. It's dangerous. And they're right, because survivors already have the fear of not being believed. When someone in law speaks up and mocks them like that, it affects how people see the justice system. And it perpetuates the victim-blaming mentality that is still prevalent today. So it's really important to be empathetic. To be empathetic to people who have gone through and survived mistreatment of any kind. But especially this in particular. Because thanks to Mr. Chia, we now know that there's still some level of bias in the legal profession that could very well bleed into their work. We could only hope that there aren't many like him around.